Hello, I'm going to show you how to do a quick fix. You've got some buzz or weird noises in your electric. So I've already had this problem for ages. I've tried different chords, I've tried all kinds of things. Whenever I go to play, I get this signal. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. You can hear it in the background. Anyway, you change the volume. See, it's cutting out. Turn the volume up a little bit. You can hear that hum. So this metal piece here is not touching the tip of the cable. So we need that to touch. So if I plug it into the new one, you can see it fits perfectly. This piece is really tight to the tip socket. So what I'm going to do is essentially take the soldering torch, which obviously is very hot. You should be very careful with. I'm going to disconnect it from these two wires. So it's important to remember which of the wires is the one that is on the inner circle connected to this, and which of the one is your second bit, which is the tip. So you can see this is the white. You can't really see. There we go. See the white wire. Put the soldering torch down. So I recommend. You can see the white wire is there, and then the black wire. And I've got some blue heat shrink around them, but you don't really need. But basically, before you disconnect it, remember which one is which, because when you go to connect it again, you'll forget. So this black wire is the inner, or the ring. So what I'm going to do is take the soldering torch, which is already heated up, and I'm using a gas torch because I use it for work and I'm too lazy to buy a corded one. But obviously you don't want to be soldering over your guitar, so solder away from the guitar. You want to have a nice, relatively clean table. You can see you've got heated up a certain amount, and I've ran so that's come loose. You can see the black wire is gone. I'm going to do the white wire. So remember, the black is the inner ring. The colors may be different on your guitar, so it's important to remember. You could even label them with tape and say tip, ring, whatever it is, because they do need to be in a certain order based on what we talked about earlier. So what I'm going to do is going to get some wire cutters. So I've got some tiny little snips, which are way better. So if you've got a small cable, use a small wire. You can use any type of pliers, essentially. You can use anything, but if you can buy tiny snips, the easier it is to do, essentially. So I'm re-stripping. There's already copper showing, so I'm going to strip some of the black sheath off. You can see these are flush cuts, so one side is curved, one side is flat. So I put the flat side facing away from me and I flick like this. It takes a bit of practice. If you cut too much copper off, it's okay. You can just cut a bit further, but you want to just kind of pinch it, twist a bit. You don't want to cut all the pieces of the wire off. This is stranded wire, which means you can see there's a bunch of little pieces that make up the wire. I'll show you that. So you can see it's like hairs. So if you cut too many of those away, essentially you won't get your connection. So what you do is you strip it, and I'm twisting them together. My soldering iron really stinks. I've got this arm as well to grab, but I might not really need the arm because if you have something like this, it can hold on to your wire. You can grab two of the wires together if you're trying to join. And I bought this at Bunnings, which is an Australian version of Home Depot, basically. And yeah, I'm just going to do it by myself with my hands without using probably the clamp, because it's a bit just easier, and I can set it over the table. Again, you notice I'm not soldering over my guitar. It may not stick. Usually solder doesn't stick to plastic, but you just don't want to be burning your guitar as you do it. Some people cover it with tape. There's all kinds of different ways to do it. So what I do is I cut a bit of the wire off of the solder, and what I do is I put my torch under the black wire and I twist it. So now I'm heating it up from the bottom, and I'm going to do what we call tinning. So the black wire is basically on top of the torch, and I let it heat up. I don't put the soldering iron over it. I put the soldering iron under and I tin it. So what I'm doing is just getting a bit of solder onto that wire that's all hairy, and you see I've dropped a bit there. So if that was my guitar, that would now be on my guitar basically. And usually solder will not bond to a lot of materials, but you never really know. So best thing is don't have it right on top of your guitar, because it does fall down, you do make mistakes, and don't have your hands underneath it. So here we go, I'm going to just run that along. You can see a bit of smoke. It's important to mention again, I've been soldering for a long time, and I've done it in the wind, I've done it in the back of a van, at work, I've done all kinds of different situations, so I'm quite comfortable with it. But if you are not, you should definitely have a rubber mat down, and you should have a proper soldering iron with a clamp that holds things for you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically loop that through the eye of the inner one. So the black wire is being looped through. You see that, sorry that I'm using a phone, see that I've looped it through the hole. And then I'm going to solder that to that particular hole. And that again is the black wire is the top one on this, which is actually going to be the second ring, or the ring, actually the second connection on the wire. When you plug it in, it will be upside down. So anyway, basically just the same one as it was before. I've reconnected it. So you want to try to not get too much solder, so you just lightly touch it, and then wait for the solder to bond. There we go, and sometimes you get a bit shaky, but that's okay. If you put your elbow down on the table first and then put your arm on, if you're trying to hold it like this, it's good, but if you're finding it a bit shaky, you put your elbow onto the table first, and that will kind of stabilize your arm. And if you do get a bit shaky, it's okay, just shut it off, try again. So I've soldered. Actually should have left that alone for a minute. So you can see I've soldered that black bit onto there. It's a pretty good connection. Alright, here we go. And now I'm going to do the white bit. So what I do is I push it through the hole. You can see this, but there's a little tiny hole there. So you put it, this is the second one, so I push it through the eye. And you don't really have to loop it through, you don't, if it's a bit, if it's your first time soldering, you might want to twist it around so it doesn't fall out, but you really just need to contact that, almost like a semicircle or an S. So again, I'll cut some solder, and then I'm going to give you a different angle here, a bit more of an idea. There we go. So the more you do this, obviously the less wire you have. So it's maybe good at some point to make these wires longer, but at this point I can be close to the guitar, far enough away from the guitar that I'm not going to damage anything. So here we go. I'm going to just put the solder onto the little hole. You can see this, and you really don't want to breathe too much, but you know what, I've breathed in the fumes before, and it really doesn't, you don't want to do it every day, but once in a while, not good for you, but little bits and pieces. It's not the same as welding or something that's really dangerous. And generally, if you're outside or you have an area, you can get a fan or something to blow the fumes away. Okay. I do have asthma, so I'm fairly sensitive to stuff. So if it was an issue, you might want to be careful if you have smoke alarms in your house as well, because the smoke can potentially set off the smoke alarm, which just take the batteries out of the smoke alarm. I mean, it's not a big deal, but yeah, something to think about. I haven't set off the smoke alarm down here, which is good, but it's unlikely to happen. So I'm just putting the screws back into here. Sorry, bit of a bad angle. So yeah, just a basic Phillips screwdriver bought from the electronics store. Sometimes the holes don't seem to line up actually. So what you want to do is put one in just halfway. The screw's only halfway down. You put the second one in about halfway, and then basically you just screw it in. There's not really much to it. So yeah, so I made a cardinal sin is like I didn't shut off the soldering torch after I was finished. So what you want to do really is take this, put it away somewhere else, have a stand. In this case, because I have a gas torch, what I do is I just take my pliers, set them down, and set the tip up like this. But you really want that to be away from you, because what you're going to do is put your elbow, your arm, and that will melt your flesh essentially. And you want to wait 10 minutes, 15, even half an hour before you put that in your bag or put it away. As you can see, I've melted the cover of my soldering torch because I didn't do that. So, very hot. Again, don't take too many chances, but here we go. We've screwed it in. Okay, I've got both screws lined up. The thing is pointing, so I plug in this way. Now we're going to do the test. So I've got it already plugged into the amp. It's also important when you do the work, don't leave this plugged in, so keep that unplugged, because you're essentially sending power through it as you're reconnecting the wires, and that can cause other problems. And it's just generally a good idea to take the power off anything you're soldering, especially like a panel, or if it's something in your car, definitely don't turn on the car. If you're soldering wires, I turn off the power supply to whatever I'm soldering to. You can see that I'm not getting that same static. There's a bit of a hum, but that's because the amp is not of the greatest quality. But yeah, you can hear this now, and I'm going to try to set up the phone a bit more. Sorry, here we go. So yeah, this is the guitar. You see, I've plugged that in. It looks exactly the same. And see, if I wiggle this cable, see, I've got no. You want to make sure this nut is also tight on the outside, but because I didn't change that, it's fine, really. So you can see I've got no more static when I wiggle it. You're not hearing that. So yeah, that's it. And this is my first post doing my own electronics. I've been doing electronics for probably 10 years for security and some of my own guitar work. So yeah, put your comments in and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for watching.